All right, and Mentor Minutes is live. This is just a place for leaders from around the world to come together, ask real questions from their real life experiences, and we'll try to get some real answers for them to be able to move forward and get past some of the hurdles that you're facing. I'm Cameron. I come from 20 years of leadership experience in the trenches, so this is all going to be very practical stuff that we're talking about. So if you have any questions, drop down into the comment section, ask away, and we'll field those in a live environment. And if you are coming to this a little bit late, in the day, this is shooting around noon Pacific Standard Time on Monday, you still feel free, drop down into the comment section, ask a question. I check prior episodes to see if there's anything that I missed, and that's what's going to actually start us out today. But if you're also tuning into the podcast, if you're tuning in on the YouTube channel, again, drop down into those comments and I'll get those questions on the next episode of Mentor Minutes that I shoot. Today's first question came in from last week, the last episode that I did, and it was from Shannon. And it's basically, how do you find a mentor in another department where you can speak confidentially about some of your frustrations and some of the things that you deal with? And finding a mentor, great question. Love it, Shannon. I love that you're reaching out because it's important to gain or gather experience from different areas to make your life easier and to improve your career. And one thing that I tell people in regards to mentors and getting a mentor is that it doesn't have to be one single person. I'm a big fan of the build a mentor process. Luke, so good to see you here. In those cases, you are taking individual traits from other peers even, or other departments. So you go to the VP of sales and you find out how exactly selling works best. You go to finance and you learn finance, or you learn how to deal with people better, or how to run a particular meeting. Every leader has strengths and weaknesses, and one of the things that stops people from getting a mentor is they can't find somebody that is great at everything. You pick and choose the things that, or you pick out the things that you don't like in a particular individual, and that stops you from, tapping into them and their mentoring abilities. Don't do that. Look for the strengths in an individual and learn from multiple people and multiple mentors. So the brass tacks on it is when you're looking to find another department, and good to see you here, Cindy, John, and I'm trying to scroll and it's not letting me scroll yet. We'll see how that plays out. But when you're looking for a mentor, look for an introduction. So it may be that a friend of yours in another department has a great boss. Tell everybody that you're looking for a mentor. You're looking to be tutored in different areas, and simply go and have lunch together. It might be that you tag along, and there's a few different people that go, and the boss happens to be there as well. And so that creates your introduction. And what you want to do in these first initial sessions is ask a ton of questions. Well, what was your background? Well, what position did you hold? What were some of the challenges that you faced? People love talking about themselves, and that becomes the easy introduction to that. And then at the end, or in a follow-up email, you simply ask them, hey, would it be okay if we went out for coffee? I'd love to pick your brain. It was a great conversation that we had, and I'd love to pick your brain on things. And so one of the keys to getting a mentor is never actually asking for somebody to be a mentor. People shy away from that. Hey, I'd like you to be my mentor. That seems like responsibility and people don't necessarily have time. But hey, I'd like to go out for a cup of coffee with you maybe once a month and pick your brain on things. That seems very casual. There's no commitment necessary, and people don't have to take responsibility over your career. So find a way to get introduced in the first place, then ask them out for coffee and just simply ask them about themselves to start out with, and then you can get a feel for their trustworthiness as far as sensitive issues are concerned and whether they're willing to share their thoughts on particular things. But that's the way that I approach finding a mentor out there, and I hope that works for you and is helpful for you. The other question, I know I've got a couple questions that are queuing up here, but I did want to get to one I didn't get a chance to get to in the last episode, and it's from Stephanie, and it's one everybody can relate to, and it is, how do you stop gossip in the department? Gossip thrives in a workplace that has a lack of communication in two areas. A, there simply isn't enough communication and information that's flowing through the organization, and that creates a vacuum for gossip or guessing. If people don't have information, they will guess. And so there's that lack of information, and then the other thing that happens is a lack of frankness. For lack of a better term, it is simply being transparent. So it's not just giving everybody the information, it is giving them the real story on what is going on. And so if you find yourself in a department that is experiencing a whole lot of gossip, and you don't actually even, it's easier if you're in a leadership role, but you don't actually have to be in a leadership role to be able to start addressing this. Share information as it comes across as to what's going on in the department, what's going on in the organization, what's happening next in the department, what's happening next in the organization. People love that stuff. And that starts it out. The other thing is try to find that transparency, those important things. How are people doing? How is the department doing? Don't sugarcoat it. Are you having a slump in sales? Whatever it is. But the two things to address gossip is more information and more clear and frank, transparent information. Those two things are what will suck the life right out of any sort of gossip. It doesn't give it any room to flower because people understand what's going on. So you can say, you know what, Cameron has no idea what he's doing. He is completely failing at his job. But if everybody can see that Cameron is at the top of the leaderboard as far as sales for this particular month are concerned, then you can't say that without a whole lot of qualification because people are informed as to how everybody else is doing, how the organization is doing. And so increased communication and increased frank communication are the ways to tackle that. And I'm having trouble, oops, there we go. Trying to scroll, there we are. There, I'm able to scroll. I want to get some of these questions. It's good to see everybody on here. Love seeing where everybody is from. One of those things is that one of the most difficult parts of leadership is dealing with people. And people are way more similar than we give them credit for across countries and across cultures. So the same issues you deal with here in the States are the same issues that happen in Trinidad and Tobago, in Pakistan, in South Africa, in the UK. And so it's just nice to know that you are not alone. And Devin has our first question. It's, how do you motivate staff in a new department that was demotivated by their previous supervisor? Well, Devin, depending on how much time has gone on, you have a glorious opportunity to create a new a new way of doing things. One of the best things to do when you have a demotivated staff is you need to break the cycle. So anybody that's out there, if your staff is waning as far as their motivation is concerned, what that happens is that's creating a habit. And you need to break that habit. So a new leader coming on board is a perfectly great opportunity for you to break that cycle and to instill a little bit of momentum in the right direction. So the best thing to do, and at the outset of this, is if you're looking to turn around the motivation, think of it as turning around a super tanker. All right, it turns slowly. This is not a little jet ski where you can just flip it around and it turns around in a snap. Be prepared that you need to be working this 3, 4, 5, 6 steps, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks that you plan out as far as dealing with this motivation, be able to turn it around because they're in a slump. The best thing to do from a motivation standpoint is to actually bring the people into the discussion. Now you can do this a number of different ways. You can take a survey. What is it that motivates you? Pick the top 3 things. All right, and you can Google this, what motivates people in the workplace. It's, peer pressure, it's team building, it's an intrinsic desire to do a good job, it's money, it's accolades and recognition. There's all kinds of them. So you can Google that and find out what it is that motivates people. But what I would actually recommend in these cases is figuring out what has been working and what hasn't been working. Go to them and ask them, hey, I'm new here. Tell me what has been working in the workplace. Tell me what hasn't been working. And engage them that way. That engagement will create and give you the plan basically moving forward to be able to flip those things around, instill a little bit more ownership and create a little bit more life. Now, I mentioned many times the 5 questions. So 5 questions to ask every employee that you have, Devin. What do you see going right in the organization? What do you see going wrong in the organization? Where are there opportunities that we need to take advantage of? Where are there problems we need to fix? And how can I help you do your job better? Those 5 questions, as it gets really close to the camera there. Those 5 questions will give you all the information you need to know about issues that are in the office right now and what exactly it is that you want to do about them and what are most prevalent. And so what you do in those cases is you take some low-hanging fruit. There'll be some big issues that possibly come up there, but there'll be a little bit of low-hanging fruit. Take action on that low-hanging fruit. And then what you do is 3 or 4 weeks later, you bring everybody back into the office and say, hey, I know I ran this past everybody, and there were a few things that came up, like the printer and like the, changing the soda fountain out and looking to switch up some shifts, and we put those in place, but I wanted to re-engage everybody that's out there. What do you see going right? What do you see going wrong? Where are there opportunities? Where are there problems? And how can I help you do a better job? And hit them again with it. When people see that you take their feedback and take action on it, they realize that you value it and they will give you more. So when you do tackle that low-hanging fruit from the first time around, mention that, hey, in talking to Cameron and in talking to Devin, they both mentioned that this could help, and it makes sense that we do something in regards to this particular issue. So we're doing this now. When people see that, it is a huge motivator. When your boss thinks you're important enough to actually listen and take action on their job, sadly, that's not always the case. But they also will start feeling a little bit more involved. They'll take a little bit more ownership, and that is motivating in and of itself. And so that's the big thing that I would look to do. Yes, you can look to do team building activities. Yes, you can look to instill a little bit more fun, do some games, that sort of thing. All of those things are good, and you can do those alongside this, but really it is the engagement. If you have a motivation problem, if you have an accountability problem, if you have a problem with sales, if you have a problem with production, ask your team what the issues are. Where are their opportunities and where are their problems in that specific area? I guarantee you they will come up with something that you hadn't thought of, or will reinforce something that you didn't think was as high of a priority, but really is a high priority. Great question, Devin, and I hope that helps out. Bev, Romans, good to see you here. Natalie, as always, and Charlene, good to see you as well. Looking for that next question that comes up, and if you have a question, I know we have a bunch of people that have jumped on. If you have any questions, drop down into the comment section. I will be happy to field those. I'll just take them in order as we go along here. Luke has the question, how do you push urgency within a team without being pushy? Luke, give them the reason why. Why is the deadline important? Why is it that they need to do certain things first as far as their day is concerned? Why is that important? Too often people disconnect things from the why, and what happens is they then go off of what they prefer and what works for them. And so you want to give them the reason you want, and you keep hitting it. Oftentimes, this is almost, and I hate to say it, but it's just a reality. Oftentimes, this is a game of chicken with your staff. You will say, I need you to do this thing first because such and such, and they won't do it. And so you need to hit them again with it and say, hey, I know yesterday I told you I needed to do this first, but it's really important that we do this because of this. What they're doing is they're testing you. Too often, and almost all of us have experienced it before, the boss comes down with a directive that something is really important that everybody needs to focus on. And then 2 weeks later, that's gone all by the wayside, and now there's a new thing that's really important that we really need to focus on. And what that does is that trains a staff to not pay attention and to test your priorities and that urgency. And so when you are persistent with it, when you are following up with a why and a reason for why they need to be doing things, then what that does is that fills in those blanks, that lets them know that it's not going away and that you have a clear purpose behind it. So that's one of the keys to it, explaining the why. The other thing is if it's a larger project, Luke, if you are dealing with a multi-day, multi-week thing, what often helps is setting up a loose project plan ahead of time. We need to do this right away so that we are on target, so that we can do this and we can do this. Fill them in on that whole plan, but also break it down a little bit. And so you're giving them short things to tackle and not the long game. Because what happens is if you stretch that out, they wait and they wait and they wait. We all do that. We all did that in school where we finished the term paper the night before or the morning of. I'm guilty of that one. So make sure that you're creating mini goals to that urgency, but reinforcing the why behind it, giving them more information. Let me know if that helps, if that resonates, and if it doesn't, Luke, then follow up with it, and I'll try to parse out some other ideas on that. How do you motivate a staff that's lost the enthusiasm? Good point, and kind of a follow-up to what we talked about before, Natalie, in regards to engaging the staff. First and foremost, engaging the staff, taking action on it, Yes, you can throw in some games on there. When we start talking about loss of enthusiasm, and this gets to motivation as well, the thing that I would really reference, Natalie, is why is what they do important? And you start weaving that into the discussion. So why is what the organization does important to society? And you know, depending on the industry you're in, you almost have to get creative, but I guarantee there is a purpose for why your organization is in place. Otherwise, it would not exist. I'm here in Vegas. I had a bunch of time in the hospitality industry here. Our role was to give people a break from their day-to-day lives, allow them to have fun, and get back to their lives so that they could be at their best with rest, relaxation, fun, that sort of thing. That was what our purpose is. Now, we're a casino, you know, there are a bunch of casinos out there. We're there to take money. That's what everybody thinks. But if you phrase it in a way and you touch on why it is that you really exist, that's a key to it. Now, talking about departments, bringing it down a level. What happens, the question I ask, if you want to find the importance of your department or the importance of your organization, all you need to do is go through the mental exercise of what happened if your organization or all your employees and you disappeared. And for some reason, nobody noticed. So what happens if you're in accounting and all of the people that work in accounting disappear one day? Well, all of a sudden, stuff isn't getting paid. All of a sudden, invoices are going out and you're not getting paid. All of a sudden, the lifeblood of the organization dries up and it shrivels and dies. If the IT department isn't there, the computers aren't going to be working and the whole organization is going to grind to a halt because they can't leverage the computing technology that they have. If you're in customer service, nobody's going to answer the phone. No new orders are going to come in. People are going to get pissed off because their issues can't be resolved. So that's a great way of tapping into the importance of your particular department. But yes, engage the team. Yes, have fun. But when you start talking about loss of enthusiasm, a lot of times you need to get back in touch with why your department is there and why your organization is there. And you just weave the answers to those questions of why you're there and why the organization is there. You weave that into the day-to-day. And it can simply be, hey, I need you to do this, or it's important that we do this because if we don't do that, then the money doesn't flow through the organization, and then the organization can't provide a service to the community at large. And it takes practice. Don't get me wrong. It takes practice. You have to get specific at it. But if you can start tying people's things to that, they'll bring a little bit more enthusiasm, because one of those psychological traits that everybody has is they want to have that sense of importance. They are certainly the center of the universe in their own lives, and they want to know that they have a sense of importance to the world at large as well. Alu, good to see you here. Devin, glad that resonated with you as well. Romans. Hey, Sharon, so good to see you here. It's been a while. Why is it, hypho, where are there opportunities? The reason why it is important. It's important to ask about opportunity. Too often we're focused on problems, and that's an issue with leaders all the time, and certainly an issue with our boss as well. We assume everything is going to work out really well as far as our plan is concerned, and so we're hyper-focused on problems. But I want people thinking about opportunities as well. New things, new ideas. That's one of the things that gets overlooked so much in employee engagement, is the leveraging more minds on more new ideas and more ways to evolve. It's important that the organization is evolving to match the world at large, because the world at large is changing. Your organization needs to be changing and looking for the next great thing. And being able to leverage those ideas of your team is huge out there. Accountability and reward counts. Yes, good point. Shakar says, what if your seniors, it doesn't count on your accomplishments? I'm not sure, Shakar, what you're getting at there with that particular question. What I would say is I'll flip this question. You can kind of clarify if you want down in the comment section here, but I'll flip this question a little bit and see if I've got it right. And that is, what if your peers and what if your boss doesn't count as far as what you are evaluated on? And that is a big problem in a lot of organizations where the performance metrics and how people are gauged are misaligned with the overall organization's goals. And in those cases, you want to draw, quite frankly, and I almost hate to say it, but you want to draw that balance. All right, you want to be doing things that are good for the organization as a whole, but you also need to spend some time focusing on yourself and your metrics as well. The reason you do that is when those priorities are slightly misaligned, and I'll just say slightly because it does have an effect. When those things are slightly misaligned, you need to have the performance at the ground level in your department to be able to have the leverage and the status in the organization to do other things. So it's almost like you take care of two things in your area that are almost selfishly related and then do something else for the organization as a whole. And so you're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, let's say, bad example to a certain extent, but you just draw that balance. And it happens in a lot of organizations, I want to say almost in most organizations, where you have siloed departments that have their own performance metrics that are almost at odds with other departments. Look for ways to take care of your own ship, but then look ways to serve others. And why you do that is because slowly but surely what happens is people see that you're serving others and it becomes a little bit more cultural. This is something that takes a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months down the road before you start seeing some of that. But you want to be the person that is initiating the change from a cultural standpoint when something isn't quite right. Russell, why don't worry. Good, Robbins. Good, Luke. I'm glad that worked for you. Charlene says, how do you reward staff in a financially strapped company? Great question. One that comes up all the time. You want to get creative. And again, I'll reference Google on here. You could say non-monetary rewards for employees, and you probably come up with a big list. I will tell you the most beneficial ones that I've come across, that I've used, are 15 minutes late in, 15-minute early outs, 15-minute extra break on there. They don't cost, I mean, there's a cost, of course, but it doesn't really cost you much. Parking spots are absolutely huge. So if you need to, reward staff for some certain things, say, you know what? The top 3 in this particular area get the best 3 parking spots in this upcoming month or quarter, whatever it is. You can look, you don't even have to do any of those rewards. What you can do is you can focus on making the workplace better, Charlene. So you engage the team a little bit more, you spend a little bit more of your time out on the floor amongst the team, finding out what's going on and making their work easier. That's a reward in and of itself. You can also find ways to make the work more fun. Whether it is a dress down day on Fridays, that's another classic one that's out there. You can have dress up days. We're heading into football season here in the States, and so tons of offices are going to have dress up days where everybody's wearing their favorite football jersey. So look for ways to find fun. There's a lot of non-monetary rewards that you can use, Charlene, but also look to see what you can do to invest in a better workplace, because that's hugely motivating for people in and of itself. All right. Hope I gave you a couple of good ideas there, though. Yes, thank you. Yeah, and Sharon throws out a couple of really good ones in the comments, and I appreciate that. Eliana, good to see you here from Jordan. A little bit late over there on a Monday evening. How do you motivate, or what kind of advice you can give to someone who spent more than 16 years on the same jobs and wants a change, noting that they love what they are doing but starting to feel bored? What kind of advice can you do? Part of it is starting small. As I kind of reread the question there, Eliana, just to get at it a little bit. So part of it is starting small and exploring the opportunities that are out there. So I will work with, individual leaders. And a lot of this is they're not happy with their job. They're not fulfilled with their job. And one of the first steps that we do is we go out to the job boards. Career Builder, Monster, whatever it is that happens to be in your country, your region, your industry, go out there and see if something resonates. It may be that it falls flat. It may be that you see a whole bunch of things and a whole bunch of opportunities and you start getting excited. And that's an indication that you want to keep going down the road just a little bit. So that's a great way. If you want to stay within the same organization, then look at the job boards within the organization. Talk to some of the senior leaders and see what new projects, new divisions are going to be created, and if any of those resonate with you. So that's the first thing to do there. The other thing that you can do if you start feeling bored, and it's something that helps if you want to make a jump to something else later on, is looking to see what else it is that you can learn. Yes, if you've been there for 16 years, I bet that you've seen just about everything, but maybe there's an opportunity to shadow another department that's downfield from you, for instance. So it's an instance where you're in customer service, but you have a numbers background, so you shadow somebody in accounting who you deal with regularly for half a day and see what they do. Or you go out to the warehouse and shadow the warehouse for half a day. Or you go to marketing and shadow marketing for half a day. That's another great way of sparking those interests and seeing what kind of takes root and where that goes from there. It's important to keep engaging those team members that have been there for a while, even if they don't want to move on from the organization, and making sure that they are learning things that are new. If you're not growing, you're dying. And it absolutely is the case. Even if you're in the same role, you are atrophying some of those skills. You are getting more complacent. And so you want to start learning a little bit more where possible. If you don't have either of those opportunities, if those didn't resonate, the last thing that I would mention, Eliana, is that this person should look to become a trainer. And it may be that they step into a training role a little bit if they haven't already. If they have been doing that, is there a way to get some time for them to codify things and create a standard operating procedure or come up with a training plan? Is there some way to leverage their experience for everybody else? Maybe they're leading a best practices session, something along those lines. So I always say, check out the job boards, see if that sparks anything that's out there. Look for opportunities to learn new things. Or if you learned everything in your department, maybe it's you shadow other departments and get exposed to different ideas. And if you haven't already, become a trainer and work on some sort of training plan with the manager so that you can kind of develop things a little bit more. But all of those things, in all of those instances, you're looking for the next step past that, and the next step past that, and the next step past that, as far as activities that you can take to spark interest and bring a little bit more focus to what you want. The end goal on this is that you want some focus as to what you want. So you start with a broad look at everything, and then you slowly but surely bring some focus to it. And the focus may be, you know what, I'm happy where I'm at. Or it may be, I was really excited with what was happening in accounting and I want to learn more. Or I was really excited about this job posting that I saw for this particular position. I'm interested in that in this company or another company. So look at it from that way. A little bit long-winded there, but I hope you got a little something out of it, Eliana. Kimberly, so good to see you here. And Natalie, I don't know how wise those words are, but I appreciate the sentiment on it. Oops, there we go. Kathy has the next question, and it's, how do you handle frustration with cliques that include upper management and it affects everyday operation? Whew, hit me with a tough one right there, Kathy. The way to tackle, I'll say the way to tackle cliques is to institute a mixing up of individuals. So whether it is mixing up the seating assignments, that's a great way to do it. Every 6 months, we're going to switch things up, and you're going to be sitting next to somebody that's new. It doesn't mean that you go hang out with your friends that you always had. Cliques are something that are going to be natural. I guess that's the first thing that I should mention. However, you can diminish the negative effects of cliques by making sure that everybody is exposed to everybody else that's going on, that's in the operation, so that those cliquish behaviors don't become something that fosters ignorance as far as other individuals. When you seat somebody next to another individual, you learn. Even if you're not talking a ton, you are learning through osmosis and other things, a bunch of other things about that person. You learn more, you understand more, and the negative effects kind of decrease after that. Now, when you start talking about people who are cliques within upper management, what you want to do is you want to try to get frank with the upper management person, okay? And what you're looking for is you're looking for a couple of instances at least Okay, one instance where that created a negative effect on you isn't enough. Because the classic defense when you bring something to somebody is, oh, well, that was just one instance. You need to have a couple backups for that as well. And you go to them and you simply say, hey, I don't have a problem with you being friends with Cameron. However, I want to make sure that Cameron isn't using your name as a bullying technique to get their way in regards to certain things. And so I just want you to be mindful of it because it's come up in this instance, this instance, this instance. And I'm addressing it with Cameron, but I wanted to address it with you as well. Then you go to that person and say, hey, I have no problem with you being friends with Kathy, but that can't have any sort of influence on what we are doing in this organization. If you have issues with that, you need to bring it to me. When you have uncomfortable situations, when you have embarrassing situations in the workplace, one of the best things that you can do is you get hyper transparent and real. It is different in most organizations, and for that reason it gets attention, and most people appreciate the real story behind things. We're always looking, especially in this day and age of media, we're always looking for the hidden motivation behind certain things. So when you are upfront and honest, people appreciate and people listen, and you can hopefully address it. You do it softly. You'll see that, hey, I have no problem with you being friends, but it can't affect the work. And just having those instances that you can fall back on and say, this is where I perceived it. And maybe it didn't take place, but I just want to call it out. And if you call it out, it's going to diminish that initially, or it's going to diminish that right away. And then you can keep following up. That creates kind of the doorway into further discussions. But if you have cliques in the workplace, it's going to happen. But look for opportunities to expose individuals to people they don't necessarily talk with all the time. One of the best ways to do that, if you are in an office environment, is switching up everybody's seating arrangements every 6 months. You're not doing it a crazy amount, and you tell people it's going to happen, and then it's something that is expected. It will likely not be something that they think of as a positive the first, second, third, fourth, or ever to a certain extent, but they will recognize some of the positive aspects of it when you do it a few times. Advice on give someone who spent, yes, Eliana, good, I followed up on that one. Juanita, good to see you here. Shakar, I'm glad I tackled that. Sometimes gets lost in translation here, so I'm glad I was able to get to it. Sherry, so good to me, Sherry. I'm glad you liked it. And all right, down to our Deadpool. Davidson, all right. How do you approach your boss that you want growth in your work? Thanks. Good question, Davidson. Everybody out there, if you're looking for a promotion, the first thing that you need to do is you need to ask for it. You need to let them know that you are interested. So in this case, Davidson, it may be just a casual popping into the office and saying, hey boss, I just wanted to let you know that I love working in this department and I want to move on, whether that's a supervisor here or supervisor here elsewhere. And I just wanted to let you know I was interested in that. And if there is anything that I can do to build up the skills or to do something that helps me move up, then I would definitely be interested in that. So you start out with just a casual conversation. You would be surprised how many leaders don't know which employees are interested in a promotion, really interested in a promotion. And so that's something that you want to tackle right away. Now, what you do with that is then you follow up 3 or 4 weeks later. And again, you simply pop into the office. Hey, boss, I know I mentioned a few weeks ago that I'd love to move up in the organization. Is there anything I can help you with that might give me a little bit of exposure or just take something off of your plate, even if it doesn't have any relation to that? And so then what you're doing is you're asking again for specific work, because what happens, and many of us who have gone down this route, they hear this all the time, and that is, you know what, the best thing that you can do is just continue doing a great job in your current position. That's fine. Not instructive. Be aware of doing that when you're a leader. Try to encourage people to grow. So you need to follow up again 4 weeks later. So you're not hounding them. You're talking 1 month at a time. Hey, just wanted to give you an pass. Is there anything that I can take off of your plate? Any projects that are going on, that sort of thing? Those conversations that you have on a regular basis, eventually they're going to realize that you're not going away and you will get something. And then hopefully a month later you get something else. And then you start being brought into the loop on certain things. But let them know that you're interested, and then ask again, so ask for the promotion and then ask for things that are going to help you grow and develop and be a perfect candidate for whatever that particular position happens to be. So I am caught up on questions here. So if you have any questions, anybody that's out there, I see Sharon's got one, but anybody else, I'm going to get to this here in a second. But if anybody's got any questions out there, drop them down into the comment section. I'm going to tackle those things in real time. Sharon's question is, what ideas do you have to get employees reading sales, customer service, or growth books? First thing is ask for volunteers. So start a book club. I actually, last week, I did a video Skype with a company in Beirut, Lebanon. And they have a book club, and they happen to have my book. So anybody who's out there, if you got a book club, I will be happy to tune in for half an hour, 45 minutes or so, and talk about any of my books that are out there. But they just started it, and it was volunteers. And so it was just 7 individuals to start out with. Maybe it's just 3 that start out with. But what happens is people around them will start seeing, it's kind of a club, so there's a social aspect to it as well, but they'll start seeing that people are developing, growing, getting different perspectives. Because what happens is when you read these books, you gain a little bit of wisdom, you gain some perspective, and it helps you in the workplace. It shows up. It might not show up immediately, but 2, 3, 4, 6 months down the road, it absolutely shows up depending on the books that you're reading. On Friday, I'm going to be talking in this Mentor Minute session about Extreme Ownership, one of my favorite books of the last couple of years in leadership. Being able to talk about those things and develop those ideas is important. So you can just ask for volunteers. You can incentivize. Those people that are a part of this book club will get 2 15-minute extra lunches next month. They will get maybe a parking place. You don't have enough parking places for that. But you find some sort of carrot. It doesn't have to be a big carrot, and quite frankly, I don't want it to be a big carrot in this case. But just some acknowledgement and some sort of thing that they are going to get out of this extra time that they spend. But just start it. Start small and be persistent. What I see so many times is leaders take the right action. Everybody out there, tune into this. You take the right action, but you're not persistent enough to get the benefits down the road. The result of your actions don't often show up this week, this month. They often show up next quarter, next year. So if you're taking the right action on things, get persistent with it. So you might have just a few people that jump on. Fine. Keep it going. 2, 3, 4 books down the road, all of a sudden people are going to realize it's not going away and that there might be some benefit to it. So couple of ideas. I love the question, Sharon, by the way. And Davidson, I hope that works for you. Again, let me know. You can always email me, cm@cameronmorsey.com, direct message me through Facebook, or hit any of the comments on any of these Mentor Minute sessions that I do live. So I'm going to go ahead and give my little spiel at the end. I love for everybody to tune into my podcast. I'll have the links up here in probably 15 minutes after I end. Over on SoundCloud and on iTunes. You can listen to these. It's just an opportunity for you to exercise your leadership thinking. You may not have a perfect example of what I'm talking about, but it'll be something you can store away, and it's something you can probably learn from. But giving your leadership mind some exercise every day is a great way of developing that and getting a little bit more strength behind your leadership. So the podcast is a great way to do that, or just simply watch one of these replays. Appreciate all of you out there, and I will hopefully be talking to you tomorrow. Thanks, Sharon. Bye-bye.